Jacob Harlan had spent the last 6 years alone on Outpost Theta 9. It wasn't a bad place, just empty. The outpost floated on the edge of a small mining planet surrounded by rocks and silence. The nearest neighbor was 2 light years away. He worked as a systems engineer, fixing machines that broke and sending mineral reports that no one read. The stars outside his window were the only company he had. Sometimes he talked to himself just to hear a voice. He never imagined he would ever join something like the Companionship Exchange Program. It was new, a government experiment between species in the galactic network. People joked that it was a mail-order friendship, but it was meant for emotional support between isolated workers like him. Jacob signed up one lonely night after his birthday, when the silence in the mess hall felt louder than usual. He filled out the form, honestly. "I'm a technician. I fix things. I like old Earth music. I grow tomatoes in recycled tanks." He didn't expect an answer, but 3 weeks later the system pinged. "You have been matched. Designation, Commander Thal Ra of the Vathari Empire." Jacob blinked at the name. He knew the Vathari. Tall, powerful, proud warriors who had once ruled a dozen star systems. Why would one of them contact him? The message that followed was brief and formal. "Human Jacob Harlan. I request assignment to your outpost. My service requires discipline and purpose. Your maintenance reports suggest efficiency. I approve of this." She approved of him? He almost laughed. Still, something about her words felt sincere, not romantic, not even friendly, but curious. So he said yes. 2 standard weeks later, the shuttle arrived. Jacob stood at the landing platform, his heart racing. He'd cleaned his uniform twice, combed his hair 3 times, and still felt nervous. The sky above glowed faintly blue as the shuttle descended. Dust lifted from the ground as engines cooled, and the air shimmered with heat. The door hissed open. A shadow filled the ramp, and Jacob's mouth went dry. The figure that stepped out was massive, at least 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders and skin the color of polished stone. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and her movements were smooth, like someone trained for battle. The outpost floor seemed to tremble when she walked. Jacob had never seen anyone like her. The alien woman stopped in front of him. Her expression was unreadable. Her armor looked heavy, but she carried it easily. A long mark of silver paint ran down her right cheek, maybe a symbol of rank. "You are the human Jacob Harlan?" she asked, her deep voice calm but powerful. Jacob straightened his back. "Yes, ma'am. That's me." She tilted her head, studying him from top to bottom. "You are smaller than I expected." Jacob blinked. Yeah. Most humans are." There was a pause, and then she gave a slow, deliberate bow. "I am Thal Ra. I have arrived to complete the bond of companionship as agreed." Jacob almost choked. "The bond of... Wait, you mean the program?" She nodded seriously. "Yes, you are my assigned partner. I will assist you in your duties and maintain your living quarters for the duration of the exchange." Her tone was formal, military, but her eyes were steady, not unkind. Jacob relaxed a little. He offered his hand, unsure what to do. She looked at it for a moment, then gently pressed her much larger palm against his. Her hand was warm. The human and the alien stared at each other in silence, and for the first time in years, Jacob felt like he wasn't just another lonely engineer on a forgotten rock. Life with Thal Ra was different. The first morning, she woke up at 4 a.m. station time and started doing stretches in the hallway. The floor shook under her movements, and Jacob spilled his coffee. When he went to check, she was doing push-ups, one-handed while humming something that sounded like thunder. He leaned against the doorframe, amazed. "Do you always start the day like that?" "Yes," she replied. "It strengthens focus and honor." He rubbed his neck. "I usually start with coffee." She frowned slightly. "What is coffee?" He grinned. "Oh, you're gonna love this." A few days later, she tried it and coughed so hard he thought she was choking. But afterward, she declared it a worthy challenge and drank 2 more cups. They began learning from each other. Thal Ra watched as he repaired the station's life support system, asking questions about every wire and bolt. She was fascinated by how patient humans were with small, delicate things. In return, she taught him about Vathari customs, how they believed every task, no matter how small, could show strength if done with pride. At night, they talked about Earth and the Vathari homeworld. She told him her planet had forests of blue glass and mountains that sang when the wind passed. He told her about the smell of rain and the sound of waves on a beach. She listened closely as if trying to imagine it. Slowly, the silence of the station began to change. There were sounds now. Her footsteps, her humming, her low laughter when she misunderstood a joke but laughed anyway. The halls didn't feel empty anymore. Then came the meteor storm. It started without warning, a burst of rocks tearing through the orbit. Alarms blared and the lights flickered. Jacob ran to the control room, shouting for Thal Ra. She was already there, her hands flying over the controls. "The shields are too weak," she said. "They cannot hold long." Jacob checked the readings. The main power line was overloading. "If we don't reroute, the reactor could blow." Thal Ra stood, already moving. "Tell me what to do," he hesitated. "You'll have to hold the auxiliary hatch open manually while I replace the circuit." She gave a fierce grin. "Then hurry, human." They raced through the corridor as meteors slammed into the shields. The metal groaned under the strain. Sparks fell from the ceiling. Thal Ra reached the hatch, grabbed the lever, and pulled, her arms straining as the pressure resisted. Jacob crawled inside the maintenance bay, tools clattering. His hands moved fast. One slip could mean death. He could hear Thal Ra grunting behind him, holding the door steady as debris shook the walls. Almost there, he shouted, "Be faster!" She growled, though her voice carried more concern than anger. A final spark. The system reset. The light steadied. The storm began to fade. Jacob stumbled out, covered in dust and sweat. Thal Ra let go of the lever, her arms trembling slightly. For a moment they just stood there, breathing hard. Then she looked at him, her silver eyes soft. "You are strong, Jacob Harlan." He laughed weakly. "You're the one who held that hatch. Without you, I'd be space dust." She tilted her head. "You think strength is only in muscle. You are wrong. You kept your mind steady." "That is greater," Jacob blinked. No one had ever said something like that to him before. After the storm, something changed between them. The silence that once filled the station now felt comfortable. They shared meals, stories, even jokes. When she laughed, it echoed through the metal halls like music. But as peace returned, a shadow loomed on the horizon. One morning, the station's sensors detected large ships approaching. Vathari ships. 3 of them. Thal Ra's face darkened when she saw the readings. "They have come," she whispered. "For what?" Jacob asked. "For me," she said quietly. "The Vathari High Command does not approve of our bond. They believe I have shamed my people by serving beside a human." Jacob felt a chill. "Shamed for working with me?" Thal Ra nodded slowly. "To them, humans are fragile, unworthy of alliance. But they are wrong. I have seen your courage." She looked at him, and for the first time her proud voice trembled slightly. "I will not let them take me from this outpost, from this life." Jacob stared at her. This giant warrior who had saved his station, who had laughed at his jokes, who had learned to drink his coffee. He realized then that he would do anything to protect her, too. Outside, the sky shimmered with the approach of the Vathari fleet, and deep inside the lonely outpost, 2 very different beings stood side by side, ready to face the storm together. The sky above Outpost Theta 9 was no longer calm. 3 huge warships hung over the horizon, their dark hulls blocking the light of the small blue star. Each ship was a fortress, glowing with red lines that marked Vathari battle symbols. The Y. Ground vibrated as their engines rumbled through the thin atmosphere. Jacob Harlan stood by the control screen, staring at the incoming message blinking in red. His heart beat fast, but he stayed still. Beside him, Commander Thal Ra watched in silence, her silver eyes calm but heavy with worry. "Commander, Thal Ra of the Vathari Empire," the message began. "You are ordered to return to the fleet for tribunal. Your contact with an inferior species is a violation of code. Surrender immediately." The voice was sharp, deep, and full of authority. Jacob looked at her. "They called humans inferior?" Thal Ra nodded slowly. "To them, strength is measured in power and size. They do not understand patience or kindness or thought. They see you as fragile." He crossed his arms. "Funny. The fragile human just fixed their ship systems last month." A small smile touched her lips. "Yes. That is why they fear what you represent." The outpost trembled again as a smaller vessel separated from the fleet and began to descend. Jacob could see it through the window, a black arrow cutting through the atmosphere. "They are coming," she said quietly. When the landing craft touched down, 6 Vathari soldiers stepped out. They were tall like Thalra, wearing armor that gleamed under the station lights. Their leader was even taller, his skin darker, his eyes a sharp steel blue. He walked toward the 2 of them with slow, proud steps. "Commander Thalra," he said, his voice cold, "you have dishonored your kind. You were sent to observe the humans, not bond with them." Thalra stood straight. "I followed my mission. I learned. I served beside this human, and I found worth in him." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Worth? They are soft creatures, weak. You shame yourself by standing beside one." Jacob stepped forward before he could stop himself. "I'm right here, you know." The officer turned his gaze on him, surprised that the small human dared to speak. "Do you challenge me, little one?" Jacob swallowed but didn't back down. "No, but I'm not going to let you insult her in my home." The Vathari guards moved slightly, but Thalra raised a hand. "Stand down," she said. "He speaks with courage." Her voice echoed in the metal halls, and for a moment, no one spoke. The officer frowned. "Courage without strength is meaningless." Jacob shook his head. "You think that because you've never been small in a big universe. But sometimes, the smallest things hold the strongest hearts." The officer seemed almost amused. "You believe your heart can face our fleet?" "Maybe not," Jacob said. "But it can face you." Thalra's eyes softened with pride. The officer's expression grew hard again. "Enough words. Thalra, you will come with us. The High Command will decide your punishment." Thalra's voice grew sharp. "If my punishment is for learning to see another kind as equal, then I accept it. But I will not leave without ensuring the safety of this outpost and this human." The officer sneered. "You protect him as if he were one of us." She straightened to her full height. "He is more than that. He saved lives. He has shown more honor than many warriors in our ranks." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. A deep alarm began to scream through the outpost. Jacob looked at the control screen, and his eyes widened. "Solar flare incoming," he shouted. "The radiation pulse will hit in 2 minutes." The Vathari officer turned to his crew. "Shields up." But the shuttle's shields were already damaged by the descent. Sparks flew as systems overloaded. Jacob grabbed a toolkit and ran toward the maintenance room. Thalra called after him. "Jacob!" He didn't stop. "We can't hide. We have to reroute the energy grid or the whole outpost will melt." The officer frowned. "He will die out there." Thalra's voice was firm. "Then I will die with him." Without hesitation, she followed. Inside the control bay, heat shimmered through the air. Panels were glowing, wires sparking. The radiation storm outside was already reaching the shields. Jacob crawled under the console, his hands shaking but fast. "Thalra, I need you to hold the backup conduit open." She grabbed the thick metal handle and pulled with all her strength. The muscles in her arms strained, the metal bending slightly under her grip. "How long?" she shouted over the roar. 30 seconds. Outside, lightning-like light flashed through the sky. The shields screamed under the pressure. One of the Vathari soldiers tried to help but was knocked back by an energy surge. Jacob's mind raced. If he rerouted power wrong, everything would explode. He closed his eyes for 1 second, breathed, and remembered Thalra's words. "Keep your mind steady." He smiled faintly and moved his hands. Wires twisted, circuits clicked. "Now, Thalra, release it." She let go and the power shot through the system. The lights flickered once, then stabilized. The alarm stopped. The outpost was safe. For a moment, there was silence. Then Thalra exhaled deeply, leaning against the wall. Jacob wiped his forehead and gave a tired grin. Guess the fragile human saved the fleet. The officer, who had watched everything, stared at him with disbelief. "You repaired a system under full flare exposure. he said slowly. No Vathari engineer could have done that. Jacob shrugged. Humans are good at fixing broken things, it's kind of our thing. Thal-Ra smiled proudly. He is my partner, she said quietly. Hours later, when the radiation passed, the Vathari fleet sent a message. The High Command wanted a report on what happened. The officer transmitted everything, the flare, the damage, and how a human engineer saved their ships from destruction. The reply took only a minute. Commander Thal-Ra's actions are to be reviewed. The human Jacob Harlan is to be recognized as ally and partner of the Vathari Empire. The officer looked at Thal-Ra, then at Jacob. His tone softened. Perhaps strength comes in more forms than we were taught. He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. Commander, you may remain on this outpost. The High Command will not interfere. When the shuttle departed, the sky cleared once more. That night, the stars seemed brighter. Jacob and Thal-Ra sat outside the outpost, on the small platform that overlooked the quiet mining fields. The blue light from the star washed over them. Jacob held a mug of coffee. You think they'll really leave us alone? Thal-Ra looked at the stars. For now, yes. The Vathari respect results. You showed them what humans can do. You changed something in them. He chuckled. Me? I just fixed some wires. She shook her head gently. No. You showed them courage without weapons, strength without anger. That is rare. Jacob looked up at her towering form. And you? You stood up to your whole empire for me. That's something I'll never forget. For a while they sat in silence, the soft hum of the station behind them. Finally, she spoke again. When I first read your file, I thought humans were simple. But now I see that you are endless. You find hope even in emptiness. He smiled. Maybe that's what keeps us going. Days turned into weeks again. Life on Theta 9 returned to calm routines, repairs, reports, and shared meals. But it was different now. The outpost was not silent anymore. Sometimes a Vathari patrol would send messages of respect. Other times, passing ships would stop by just to see the human who taught warriors humility. Jacob never liked the attention, but Thal-Ra always laughed. You are becoming legend, she would tease. He would grin back. Yeah, the legend of the tired engineer who just wants his coffee. But deep down, he was proud. Not because he had saved anyone, but because he had proven that being human, being small, being patient, being kind, mattered in a universe that had forgotten what those things meant. One evening, he stood on the platform again, watching the stars. Thal-Ra joined him, her heavy steps quiet on the metal floor. Thinking? She asked. Always, he said. Do you ever miss your world? She looked at the stars for a long moment. Sometimes, but I have found another world here, small but warm. He smiled at that. Above them, the stars of two species shone side by side, one vast and powerful, one small and stubborn, but both glowing the same light. Outpost Theta 9 was no longer lonely. It was a place where strength had a new meaning, and the universe would remember the day a fragile human and a mighty alien proved that courage doesn't need size, only heart.